this spec never runs dry. No matter how bad a drought we have, there's always water in it, because South Kirby, this part of South Kirby sits on a slope, and that slope is big enough to generate moisture and water all the year round, so we always got water in here. What you're seeing now is a rise of about 1.5 to 2 foot. In fact, last night it was 3 foot, because of basically a day and a half's rain. Okay, this is what the land's saturated like, right? Okay, however, beyond those trees is the back of my house actually, and we're going to walk over there now because I want to show you something. So this field, imagine the size of this field here. It's absolutely waterlogged just after a bit of rain. It pretty much stays like this throughout most of the year, to be perfectly honest. Even when the rain stops, it's like a big giant sponge. Yeah, so it slowly releases it into that beck. It slowly releases it into that beck. Okay, imagine how much water's in this field. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about this land. So this is the back of Mayfield's Way. Okay, and well over 20 odd years ago, well over, Barrett stopped building. There's a reason they stopped building. One of them is they couldn't sell all the houses. There was a bit of a crisis at the time, and house prices were at the highest they ever were going to be. And they couldn't go beyond building there because it starts coming downhill, because that's all uphill. So if you build houses down here, you've got to have a pumping station to pump all the water and all the effluents uphill. Clearly that's just basic science. Anyway, so over the years, last 20 years, every year or so they've been digging big trenches around here. And when I say trenches, they started 6 foot, 8 foot and 12 foot they went down. And the farmer came and filled them up with water. And every year and every occasion, and I've witnessed it, that water never went anywhere. It never went, it never subsided, it never went, it stayed there, because underneath this field, so this goes down about 2 foot, maybe 2.5 foot, 3 foot. Underneath that is solid clay, which is a perfect insulator, and the water won't go through it. So it's there. So 2 to 3 foot of topsoil, which the farmer grows on, guess what that is? That is a giant sponge. And that giant sponge, for the majority of the year, collects hundreds of millions of tons of water, right? And then it slow releases it, because South Kirby, as I've mentioned, sits on the hill, that top end of South Kirby. So we get a trickle, constant trickle, coming off the top of the hills, Howellwood and all that lot. It comes down this area, and it's a constant, because there's that much water already underneath the surface trickling. It's a constant, so that beck that's down here never runs dry. Anyway, they've put these posts in because the landowners, in the greed, bought this field for about 10,000 quid. Check that out, I've got the deeds, right? So the land itself they bought for 10 grand. In fact, it's still only valued at that. And then they've tried to get planning permission year after year after year, and they've put these blue things in. They're like posts that go all the way down, and the idea is, you see what the water table's like. Well, guess what? They're full, even in summer, they're full of water. And so they're literally full now. But guess what? This area here, they've got on their plans, Persimmons Homes have got on their plans to build a giant attenuation pond, because they even know that there's a massive issue with drainage and water. So the idea is they build a giant pond, right, size of a football pitch, right, it's about almost an acre, I think, that goes down, no matter how far it goes down, because guess what? It'll just fill up. So the deeper it is, the more of a risk and a hazard it is. And then guess what? That water will stagnate. That water will just become flies, mosquitoes and other things, and it'll stink, and it'll be a hazard for kids that are not used to having such a water feature around. It will be a nightmare. So they want to build about 120 homes on this property, right? Now we could argue, we've had all the voles, we've had all sorts, the birds, the nesting birds, there's bats, there's jenny wrens, there's all sorts going on, but they're not interested in that. They'll build on a lake if they can. But I just want to mention something on this blog, that it doesn't matter what water stuff they put in, that will fill up, because it's been raining just for a day and a half now, as you know, across the country. Storm, cloudy, I think it is, okay? And guess what? This field is absolutely saturated. It's not, actually, it's not, it is, well, let's have a look. We're down at the bottom now, so it's slow releasing, and it's there. So this field is quite strange, okay? So it goes, it used to, 20 years ago, this field was almost, it was flat with a slope, if you know what I mean. There were no lumps and bumps in it. It was a straightforward, a steady incline, only slight. And then about 20 years ago, we had an earthquake, which shook everybody out of bed. Anyway, the next morning, what was apparent is there'd been a bit of a land shift, because as we walk up here, and I'll show you, there's a big, maybe you not see it properly on this video, but there is definitely like a lump that didn't exist before. And what we have is a situation where at the top of this hill, right, I say top, it floods. Now, when you've got land that floods most of the year round, that's on a slope, it means it's probably not a good place to build houses. Here's the other thing. If you take away this topsoil, which you've got to build on it, you can't build on this, and you've got solid clay underneath, and we know that this field acts as a giant sponge for the top part of South Kirby. We also know it's the limit of the surface water drains, because there is no other, because it all has to flow downhill. And then you take that away, the hundreds of millions of tons of water annually, guess what? It's got no sponge to soak into, so it will go straight into that beck, and it will go straight down to the bottom of South Emsall, and then they're going to present it with a bigger problem. The other thing as well is Yorkshire Water have already got millions and millions of pounds worth of fines against them, because that sewage farm down the bottom cannot sustain the sewage and the water treatment that's going through it already. So all we're doing is bolting on and bolting on to already stretched services, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. The other thing is, in the summer when it's really dry, all this splits up, and it's another sign that it's bad, because underneath it we know there's clay, solid clay, but the top part, it starts splitting, and you like get these here, well, they open up. It's dangerous to walk on. I mean, they become about half a foot wide, some of them, right? And it literally all splits open, because like I say, it's only like 2 or 3 foot deep. So if you took all that away and started building houses on it, and you've then got to pile down and dig foundations even further down, what I would say is that all the houses that come in here will literally be, foundations will be saturated. And now I want to try and show you, if I try and get down to ground level, not sure it'll do it, but literally you've got to bear with me. That is a slope, and it's quite a considerable one, that never was there. In fact, that wasn't even there as bad as that 10 years ago, so the land shifted again, okay? And as I go further up the hill, and I'm on a slope, remember, this gets more and more saturated. Guess why? Because it's a sponge. and it's getting water running off the top. And so this is where the majority of the water's still in, waiting to make its way down slowly into the beck. So you take this away, and then there's going to be other places impact flooded. So now we get to the top of the slope, and I'll show you exactly what I mean now. Okay, so we've now got pools of water, all this. Now bear in mind, this ain't flat land, right? This is on a slope. This is literally on a slope at the top of a hill. And persimmons want to build on it, and they're trying to make out that it'll all be fine. And the drain, limit of the surface water drain, is where those plants are there. And then it goes off that way into the centre of the estate, and then off down South Kirby and off to Ensel. So then, if I look at that there, you can see it's almost like a feature where the land drops away. Okay, that where I was first talking is literally 15 to 20 foot lower than where I am now. That was not there 20 years ago. Okay, this is not stable land to build on. And if we take away this natural sponge, right, there will be huge impacts for the people that persimmons con into believing they can live on here without hundreds of millions of tons of water coming through this location, because you're not going to stop nature, okay, into there. Okay, now you might be bored of my dulcet tones now, okay, but I'll tell you what, mark my word, if Barrett's could have built houses on here, don't you think they would have done it? There's a reason why this land is not suitable for putting domestic properties on, let alone commercial properties. Okay, and let's not even discuss another 200, 300 vehicles going through our estate where you can't even get past cars as it is. Okay, anyway, have a nice weekend, enjoy the rain. Me and Elvis have. I hope you like this bog, and if anybody wants to challenge me on this, I'm pretty willing to go into some technical arguments as to why building houses on here is a stupid, dumb idea, and Wakefield Council need to get a grip if they even consider putting planning in, and persimmons need to get a grip if they think they can build on here, and the landowners need to get a grip, because you become the most unpopular people on this planet if that happens any rod.